Good day, Rachel. Welcome to another learning session on 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world. This is Jasper Angeles joining you in curating the treasures of contemporary literature. Before we proceed, please make sure that you have with you your notebook, your pen, and of course your learning packet. Do yourself a favor by taking down notes during the live stream session. Last meeting, we have applied our knowledge of the elements of the plot in understanding the structure and themes embedded in the short story entitled Voice Tape by Ariel S. Tabag. Again, who is the protagonist of the story? Correct, it is Dante. What is the conflict all about? Correct again. It is about the internal struggle of Dante to make sense of his uncle Renato's death. We understood this because of the flashback that led us to what happened that day, the day Uncle Otto died. I guess that the theme is likewise clear to you that in the end, no matter how we shroud the truth, it will definitely and surely prevail. In today's discussion, we shall be reading another short story. We will once again use our understanding of the literary elements to deduce the theme or the central message we are always after in literature. But before that, I prepared an activity for you. What online games are you familiar with? Okay, I see on the comment section Dota, League of Legends or LOL, and other interesting games. Maybe some of you still play in Y8. Don't be embarrassed, class. That Barbie doll you have dressed or the cake you baked in Y8 will always be part of your childhood. But right now, I'd like to bring you to the world of Dota 2. By the way, what does Dota mean? If you're playing Dota, then you must know the meaning of Dota. Of course, it is Defense of the Ancients. It is a multiplayer online battle arena or MOBA video game developed and published by Valve. Dota 2 is played in matches between two teams of 5 players, with each team occupying and defending their own separate base on the map. Each of the 10 players independently controls a powerful character known as a hero, who all have unique abilities and differing styles of play. How are you familiar, or how familiar are you with the heroes in this game? In this activity class, I will be showing characteristics of these heroes, and your task is to identify the hero referred to in the set of characteristics. If you're ready, hit the heart button. Okay, let's begin. He is one of the strongest gankers and disablers in the entire game, with his combo of 3 active abilities. Furthermore, his signature ability, Meat Hook, again, the signature ability is Meat Hook, is a grapple that is thrown out in a straight line that inflicts enormous damage to the enemy. Who is this hero? Write your answer on the comment box. Correct, he is Podge the Butcher. He is a melee strength hero feared for his incredible ganking prowess and risky yet potentially rewarding playstyle. Where is Podge here in the GIF that you can see? Alright, Podge is the one with the hook that drags the enemy to himself. Let us have another hero. Her blink ability is the link pin of her skill set, allowing her to enter and leave fights at her whim. Chasing down struggling prey is another of her fortes, with Shadow Strike crippling their ability to escape. Who is this hero? If your answer is Akasha, the Queen of Pain, then you are certainly correct. He is a ranged intelligence hero who uses her abilities to close in and deal huge area damage to the enemy. She is typically played in by the middle lane as a ganker and semi-carry with her ability to appear in battle and deal damage in quick succession, as well as hunt down fleeing heroes with ease. Now let's have our last hero. If he uses Earth Spike at the maximum level combined with his Hex, he can disable a single opponent for almost 7 seconds. His ultimate Finger of Death serves as a powerful nuke and his primary source of burst damage to aid him in his endeavors. Any ideas about this hero? Who is this hero? Nice one. This is Lion the Demon Witch. It is a range intelligence hero, most commonly played as a support, who serves as a powerful offensive spellcaster, of course. All of these heroes are powerful, but you will all agree with me when I say that one needs to know on what situation should you use these heroes. Is there an appropriate hero for the one who goes on the top, mid, or bottom? That's what I'm saying. You must really had a great time with your friends while playing this game. Some play online games to break the ice, while others play these games because this is their way of escaping reality. Am I right? We have different ways of escaping reality, and one of the ways in the 21st century is to play online games. During our time, however, and the generations preceding mine, people have also become addicted to games. The only difference is that today we have HD or high definition characters and complicated plots. Before, all we had was Super Mario Brothers series or games and the other Debala games of Nintendo. Super Mario is a platform game series and media franchise created by Nintendo and featuring their mascot Mario. Two players can actually play the game. The other character is Luigi, the one who wears green. The plot is simple. Go to several worlds to save the princess from the oppressive dragon. Of course, it's not only the dragon that you will encounter, you will likewise cross other obstacles like what you can see on the screen right now. Let us watch this short clip that shows how Mario fights King Koopa the dragon. Mario is also the protagonist of another game, this time entitled Donkey Kong. The originally unnamed character, who was later called Jumpman, then Mario, must rescue a damsel in distress, Pauline, from the titular giant ape Donkey Kong. The hero and ape would later become one of Nintendo's most popular and recognizable characters. Donkey Kong is one of the most important games from the golden age of arcade video games, as well as one of the most popular arcade games of all time. Why did I show you all of these? Correct. There are some of the things, or these are some of the things that you must have seen in the short story Liquor Fade Gun by Carl Joe Javier. Were you able to relate with the protagonist of the story? What lessons did you learn? Let us add or build on the things you already know by revisiting the essential parts of the story. To begin, we will be needing our understanding of the literary elements of fiction. It is for this reason that today we aim to hit the following targets. Number one, identify the literary elements of the short story that we're going to discuss. And number two, understand the role of the literary elements in conveying and reconstructing themes. Again, here are our literary elements. Let us begin this fruitful discussion by looking at the plot of the story. Again, the plot is divided into 5 sections: the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. Note that the falling action and resolution can be combined. The losing up of the problematic ends could be the ending in itself. This is what we call denouement. Let us look at the exposition of the story. He bought the pistol up to shoulder level. let his right hand fingers wrap smoothly around it. Put the palm of his hand on the butt for support. The gun was light in his hand as he swung it from left to right, clearing the perimeter while he zoomed into the grocery store. He'd been through this before, but he still tense as he slid through the store's shattered glass door. He went over the mission specs in his head. At least 30 perps in the store plus 3 employees still inside. Bang, 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 3 to the chest. One had jumped in front of him as he stepped through the diaper aisle. Next aisle, canned goods, 3 perps. One holding a knife to a hostage. His arm glided from left to right, bang, bang, 2 in the chest, perp down. Bang, headshot, reload, last crook on the right with the hostage. 1 to the leg, hostage runs. Bang, headshot, reload. He went through the rest of the grocery in the same methodical manner. Bang, 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 reload. Bang, 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 reload. Bang, 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 reload. It was rhythm that he'd developed over the years. Cutting down the perps gave him a rush, but his adrenaline got pumping whenever there was a hostage to save. As he went through the cashier's counters, he could hear his heartbeat pounding in his ears and feel his pistol or the pistol getting slippery from the sweating of his palm. One more hostage, he thought. Bang! Oh, he'd taken a hit. A thug had popped up from behind the counter with the hostage. While the woman struggled against him, the thug raised his arm to take him again. Bang, 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 reload. All hostages saved. He smiled, put the pistol back in his holster, and wiped his palms on his pants. He watched on screen as his statistics were tallied. Hits taken 1, hostages saved 3, shots taken 105, hits 97, accuracy 92. Not bad, he said to himself. Where do you think is our protagonist? Given all of the things that we have read, where is he? Are the actions of the protagonist real? How did you know? What words or phrases support your answer? You are correct if you think that our protagonist is playing in an arcade. This might sound foreign to you since you have mobile and online games already. Just think of the world of fun and quantum. There are still machines there used for arcade. You knew that the actions in the introductory paragraphs are not real because of the statistics tallied on the screen, right? Hits taken, hostages saved, shots taken, hits, accuracy. Always remember that when you answer questions about a literary text, prepare your evidences like we always do here. It is not enough to say that the protagonist is in the arcade. You need to take notes or tell us the details that made you think that way. What about the time? I think that no reference to time or no time reference was given, but we can already assume that the story takes place or took place in the contemporary period because of the arcade games. How about the time in relation to the age of the protagonist? Is he still a young boy here in the story or a grown-up man already? You are correct if you said that this is the time when the protagonist is already a grown-up man. We can see this in these lines, the lines that you can see on the screen. One does not ask a child to fulfill societal and or familiar expectations. One would not even hire a child as a storekeeper. With this, we can assume that during this time, the protagonist is already old enough to handle himself. Through the lines, don't you want to make something of yourself? What are you doing with your life? Don't you want to become someone in the world or in this world? Through this, we can determine details for the societal or social setting. But before we look at this part, let us look at the succeeding paragraphs after the protagonist won the game he's playing. He couldn't remember what drew him first to the arcade anymore. He was 7 walking down the street with his father. All the stores on the street were brightly lit, except for one that was dark black with flashing lights. They went in and he walked through the aisle of the arcade peering up. The place is full of boys hunched over the machines. With his father standing behind him, he began his first game, Space Invaders. This is the part of the exposition called flashback, or the part that tells us something about the characters. Here we can see that it was his father who introduced arcade game to him. Before we look at the succeeding part of the flashback, note that a flashback is used by creative writers to provide information about the past of the character, the context about the events happening in the plot, and this one is used to enable the readers to deepen their understanding of the plot and characters, basically telling us why certain things became the way they are. As we move forward in the flashback, we see that he never got along with the neighborhood kids. They were loud and rowdy and made fun of his scrawny body. Then his father brought him to the arcade and he found the worlds that he was destined to inhabit. Where the mirror made him disappear, the machines took him away, brought him to places, made him different people, important people. What can you say in this flashback? What does this tell us? Why did he become so into arcade games? Alright, this part tells us that he cannot fit in groups of people. So what he did was to enter virtual worlds. Let us look at the succeeding parts. But he didn't have to be someone in this world, he would tell himself, as he zoned out of his parents' sermons. They would yammer on about him throwing his life away, but he would only think of the many worlds he had conquered. Worlds where he was real, where he was someone. And when the rest of his family migrated to another country, he'd broken ties with this world. Again, he'd broken ties with this world. There was no one to keep dragging him back. He dropped out of school, moved into a room near the mall, and started working as a shopkeeper at the arcade. Why did his parents say, "Don't you want to make something of yourself? What are you doing with your life? Don't you want to be someone in this world?" Why did they say this? Alright, first he dropped out of school. Second, he did not join his family when they migrated. Remember, in the context of the Philippines, migrating to another country is considered as an improvement in the quality of life, since only those who are privileged can do that. What does the words of the parents tell about the Filipino society? Okay, that our society, if not our very own family, expects a lot from us. What about the next line here? This one was about the boy's disappearance from the shop that he keeps. The owner asked if the guard had noticed the late shift worker leave. What have you noticed in this utterance? Does the boy have a name? Probably. But did the owner use it? Did you see the owner saying the name of that boy who keeps the arcade? I know that you know the answer already. This is very prevalent in the Filipino society. We do not care about the names of those people around us. We tend to be very indifferent of people, especially those or with those who work as storekeepers, janitors, fast food crew, and other jobs the society thinks as low-paying jobs. The society will only bother to know you if you are useful or of high social status. Again, in these two lines, we can discern the prevalence of societal expectations and prejudice in societal recognition. Okay, with those pieces of information, we have deduced not only the place of action of the story, but also the kind of society where the protagonist belongs. In terms of the characters, at this point, we were introduced already to the boy who plays and works at the arcade, the boy's father who introduced him to the arcade, the boy's parents, including his mom who expects him to make himself somebody according to the standards of society, and the old arcade keeper whom the boy can't remember. Let's go to the rising action. We said that the rising action is where the complications begin. Why not look at the conflict first so that it will be much clearer for us? Again, the conflict refers to any form of struggle that the main character faces. To see the conflict, let us look at the paragraphs written just before the conflict was introduced. For a few years, he lost himself in the arcade. The only things bringing him back to the world where he didn't belong were occasional calls, letters, and packages from his family abroad. Then he met her. Again, look at the line. Then he met her. For years, the boy enjoyed the status quo, the world where he wants, or the world he wants, the virtual world, the unreal world, until he met her. Note that we really look at the individual words. Even the small word in the story may have an effect on the whole literary work. In Edgar Allan Poe's essay entitled The Philosophy of Composition, he said that every element of the story should help create a single, lasting, emotional impact. This is also what he called as unity of effect. Even the smallest details in the story like this word, her, the word her, must be of use to present a message. I said this concept of unity of effect because you might be wondering why in this story, the conflict is an internal struggle within the protagonist. Sir, in the story, we saw that the protagonist stood up against the other boy the other boy with the girl he admires. Remember, he stood up with that boy who said a lot of mean things about the girl. Is this not an example of character versus character conflict? Again, this is a minor conflict that supports the main conflict. If that incident is the main conflict, then the story must have ended when he and the girl talked. The story ended with the boy disappearing from life. So definitely, that is not the main conflict. So what about the protagonist versus the girl, or again, the character versus character conflict? Even before he met the girl, he has already internal struggles. Do you remember when it was said that he dreamt of disappearing into the mirror? That the virtual world is his world? And that he would prefer those than reality? All of these refer to your internal struggle or the character's internal struggle. He is basically asking the question, who am I and in which world do I belong? Now that we know that the struggle is an internal one, let us proceed with the rising action of the part or on the part where the complications start. Remember that he lives well in his world until the girl comes in. He hadn't seen her as more than the usual arcade visitor until he saw her in a Sunday dress that reminded him of the pink dress worn by Princess Toadstool in the Donkey Kong and Super Mario Bros. Games. He remembered being Mario climbing through those pipes up past the evil gorilla or hopping across the bridges and stomping King Koopa's spike shell to rescue the princess. In this part, especially the sentence, he dreamt of touching her, one can see that this girl seemed to take his hand from further going into another world. Here, he thinks of the reason to stay in reality. If you are not yet convinced about this, let's look at these lines. She would bring him the things the arcade could not. She brought him back to the world, referring to the real world. He knew that he was around and there was something that the real world could offer him. Something real, something he could feel. Again, the girl gives him a reason to make himself fit in this world. This part has once again made him think of the real world and the virtual world. For those who do not know, virtual reality or virtual world refers to an illusory environment that can be presented to our senses with artificial information, making our minds believe it is almost a reality. You might be asking now, sir, what kind of story is this if it talks of the real world and the virtual world? We believe in the virtual world, but to disappear in it, well, that would probably be fantasy. Actually, you're right. It is fantasy because of what we knew in the ending or the resolution. It is even classified by Uchuko 2016 as speculative fiction. But actually, you may also think of the ending as a symbolism. You can also take this confusion between the real world and the virtual world as symbolism for identity crisis. Basically, by being confused on what to be or where to be, the protagonist is already showing signs of identity crisis. This conflict is very evident in majority of young adult or YA novels of today. If you can still remember our discussion of the genres of 21st century literature, I said there that identity crisis is one of the motifs of 21st century literature. A while ago, we have mentioned that the girl gave him reason to make himself fit in the world or in the real world. What are the evidences to this claim? Remember that the evidences allow us to stand firm on our idea that the conflict is about the protagonist who has trouble choosing between the real world and the virtual world. As we continue in the story, we knew that the boy protected the girl, whom he referred to as Princess Toadstool, from another boy, who told the girl unpleasant words. He saved someone he had rescued. He had been a hero, a protector. As she was leaving, she thanked him and told her that he noticed that she came in every Sunday. She smiled and told him that she was flattered that he had noticed. Then he said that he'd see her someday, and she smiled and left. He waited anxiously for Sunday when she would come in, and he watched her came with her brothers. He waited for her to call him. Then one of the Princess Toadstool's brothers came up to him and told him that his sister was calling him. She told him that it had eaten her token, so he bent into the machine and gave the key a twist. Then he smiled up at her. She smiled back at him. He waited for her to recognize him, to remember what happened last Friday, what he'd done for her. She just gave him a blank smile and thanked him for fixing the machine. What happened here? Was the girl able to recognize him? Let's see. She hadn't remembered him, hadn't recognized his face, hadn't known who he was. And as those thoughts played like a loop reel in his mind, he felt that no one knew him. No one bothered to notice who he was. We are then led to the paragraph below, the paragraph that concretizes our claim about the protagonist's question of identity. He was not a person. He was just the key that he held. People only approached him, only acknowledged his presence when they needed a turn of the key. Who was he then? And how much of his identity lay in the key? Here, societal prejudice on recognition hampered the protagonist's sense of identity. Now, he is confused as to who he really was. Before we proceed with the climax, we were introduced to the other characters. The girl referred to as Princess Toadstool and King Koopa, who is also the other boy in the story. These characters were essential in showing that the protagonist is capable of embracing reality. They were likewise the ones who proved that the protagonist is unstable in his sense of identity. As for the climax, we are excited as to what will the boy do next, and will he remain in the real world or choose to return to his own world? Let's look at this paragraph as evidence to the climax. He waited until he was alone so that he could turn the key and come alive again. This wasn't the world for him, and as he turned the key, he knew which one was. He stared into the screen, watched as his face began fading away, waited until it had disappeared. He could feel himself gaining substance, not being blank anymore. What happened? What did the boy do next? Did he remain in the real world or choose the virtual world? Look at that. He stared into the screen. This means to say that he has already decided. He wants to go back to his world. He watched as his face began fading away, waited until it had disappeared. This game, this virtual world, let him feel his substance as a person, the validity as a person. He felt himself flicker, fade, and disappear in order to see his significance. Again, where did the boy find his identity? How about you? Where do you place your identity? Do you know who you really are? Class, it is important to know yourself. Know what you really want and know who you are. Do not let anything be the basis of your identity. Do not let yourself flicker, fade, and disappear like the protagonist. Instead of the following action, we'll use the denouement here. Again, denouement refers to the combination of the following action and the resolution. The events that happened after the climax enable the unexplained things be clear before the readers. These events, however, may be the end in itself. Since that night the boy hadn't shown up, he'd been having a problem with the machine the guard had found the master key in. It wouldn't accept tokens, and the game would go on from start to end with the display following a distinct rhythm, bang, 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 reload. Since the night he played was nowhere to be found, he flickered, remember that at the last part of the story, faded, and eventually disappeared. Now that we're done with the plot, setting, and the characters, let us have the point of view in the theme. Who do you think, or what do you think is the point of view of the short story we have read? Why do you think so? Explain your answer on the comment box. So answer that, let's look at this paragraph again. What pronouns were used? Are the actions of the characters stated clearly? This story is indeed told by a narrator who sees the actions in the story. It's for this reason that the short story is considered under the third person point of view. Moreover, it is omniscient or third person omniscient because the narrator knows all the thoughts of all the characters and also their actions. What about the theme of the short story? What universal message was embedded in the story? Look at the sentences again. What do these sentences say about our society? Write your answer on the comment box. Why is it that the world always looks for how successful we can be? What is success for society? Can you answer this question? What is the definition of success for society, especially for the Filipino society? Some say good job, medals, superior grades, and even the amount of salary. We can therefore say that the society has its own definition of success. You know, you may be a Dota player or an ML player. You may even pursue your dreams which may be deviant from the jobs or the dreams detailed by the society as means to evaluate success. Engineering, accountancy, medicine, and others or other courses are not the course programs of successful people. Take note of that. There are other several jobs and courses in the world, and being happy with those or the things given to you is the greatest form of success and achievement. Imagine you try to please the society even though you're not happy with it. Always choose to be happy. Let's look at another theme. Look again at this passage. What made the protagonist confused? What was something the girl can give that maybe she has forgotten? What is he looking for in the sentence, people only, or what is he looking for in the sentence, people only approached him, only acknowledged him, his presence when they needed a turn of the key? I think you will agree with me when I say that he needs, or what he needs, is recognition as a person. It is for this reason that the second theme is that recognition is a human need. This is true in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Where can you see recognition there? On what part of the triangle? Do not believe others who say that recognition is not important. That's not true. Before you get fulfillment in life or the highest point in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there is also a need to be recognized. Human recognition is a human's basic need that was not given to the protagonist. Remember that even at the first parts of the story, the protagonist was not recognized for what he thinks and for who he is. Another thing, recognition is subjective. We, the society, often base the amount of recognition we give on the wealth of the person, the social class or status, or even on the abilities of the person. Why was the protagonist not recognized by the girl? Well, it's like how you treat the McDo crew. You think that because they're only a crew, they don't deserve recognition. The school guard may be under the principal or under the teachers, but that doesn't mean that he or she or the guard doesn't deserve the recognition. Everyone needs recognition. Maybe you heard this lesson because you have to practice greeting everyone. Again, greeting everyone, not only the ones whom you'd like to greet, and even thanking anyone who aid you on something. If no one recognizes you, remember that you are always valid. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. Just be you and the right people will love you. I believe that the only mistake that the protagonist did was to think of himself as unworthy of recognition. He became impatient because he did not wait. When you doubt yourself, remember this quote from Zootopia. Anyone can be anything. If you dream of being a renowned Dota or LoL player, go for it. In the current setting, esports related with online games I mentioned are played already in a tournament. For the record, esports has been a big deal for quite a while. It is a giant industry estimated to be worth somewhere in the ballpark of $1.8 billion by 2022. It's attracting the largest audience on the planet, already over 600 million people. Forbes reports that esport pro athletes have been growing more than 40 times, a trillion times since 1998. If you remember, esports were already placed in the SEA Games hosted by the Philippines last year, right? On 2021, the same games will still be held for SEA Games. This only means to say that playing computer games is not for those who don't have a dream. Again, computer games is not only for those who don't have a dream. To play these games is not to throw away opportunities in education, however. Jeniel Batanon from Lawang Bato is a national medalist for esports. This person really proved that playing online games is not related with dropping out of school and other actions that society thinks as a waste of time. Again, why is the title Flicker Fade Gone? When you look at the computer class, your image or reflection flickers, right? Fades and eventually goes away. Flicker Fade Gone is a metaphor used to refer to the boy's disappearance and or loss of identity. By looking for validation and recognition, the protagonist lost himself. He flickered, faded, and now he's gone. Let the title of this short story be a reminder, if not a warning, for us to struggle to make an identity. Do not run away. Let's not run away from who we really are. Let's not lose ourselves looking for validation. Again, this is Flicker Fade Gone by Carl Joe Javier. I hope that besides seeing the elements of fiction, you likewise had an insight, a realization about life. This is, after all, the dharma of literature. Its duty is to show you significant human experiences we can relate with and we can use as a guide in living as a human being. So much for today, grade 12. Next meeting, we'll sail to another lesson on 21st century from the Philippines and the world. This has been your live stream teacher, Jasper Angeles, saying goodbye and see you